Okay. Yerushalmi Ma'asros. It's the last Masechta for which is the Kavanoki. We're on Daf Aleph Hamad Aleph. Got it? Now, the truth is, a lot of stuff we're going to learn tonight, we really should have learned before Trumos. This is basic building blocks we're going to see. There we have this problem consistently in Gemara. Klal Amov Ma'asros. They said a general principle about Ma'aser. Koshu Ochel, anything which is food, can be consumed. V'nishmar, and is safe kept. The Gemara is going to discuss what that means. The Gidulam in order to grows from the land, from the ground. Chayiv and Ma'aser. You must Ma'aser it. Vo klal amru, echad amru. They also said another principle. Koshet chilas ochel, anything which begins as food. V'sofa ochel, and ends off as food. Afal pisha shomer lo sif ochel, even though you're not yet harvesting it, in order that it should grow larger, nonetheless, chayev koton v'gadol, it's chayev in Trumas and Ma'asros, whether it's small or large. Again, the Gemara is going to discuss what the ramification of this. V'chol she'ein tchilas ochel, anything which does not begin being food. Aval sofa ochel, by the end is food. Eino chayev ad she'asa ochel, it's not chayev in Trumas and Ma'asros until it becomes food. Now, of course, as I just mentioned, our Mishnah, when it talks about the Chiyuv Ma'asros, does not distinguish or differentiate between Trumas and Ma'asros. They're both the same. Okay? In other words, the point at which you become chayev, or that point at which you become potter, exempt, is the same for both. First Mishnah and Trumas, that's right, you got it. Says the Gemara. Do you have the Gemara right now?
Yes.
Okay. Iksiv aser ta'aser is kol. Have a header which we don't have? Which I don't have? What do you have at the end? Kolon Ma'asros. Okay. Iksiv aser ta'aser is kol. We're to say Ma'aser everything. Or you see Omer called from you Chayiv and Ma'aser. So I would say everything is Chayiv and Ma'aser. Talmud Lomer, that's why the pasuk says Tvuas Zarecha. No, the grain of your seed. Says grain. Ainli ela tvua. I only see grain. Minayin afakitnis. How do we know they're also legumes? How do we know they're also chayiv?
Yes. It says Ksiv Asir Taser.
All right, let me read it. It's minor changes, but let me read it here. Let's start again from the top. Kalro Ma'asros. Ksiva Aserta says Kol Tvar Asarecha. Ayusir would have said Kol Dvarim Yu Chayav Ma'asros. Would have said everything is Chayav Ma'aser. Tam Lomar Es Kol Tvar Asarecha Riba. It says Es Kol Tvar Asarecha. This Kol Tvar Asarecha. It Kol means all. Riba, it's an inclusion. V'Riba. Okay, it's out of order here. V'Riba Shar Ziron Egina She'ein Necholim. Let include also Ziron Egina. Let include also seeds of the field which are not consumed. Now here, the Kavanoki gives a very nice introduction. He says there are three types of growth. Grain growth. There's grain, which includes the 5 grains, right? Wheat, barley, spelt, rye, and oats. Then there's legumes. Legumes are any other type of bean which grows. Okay? And they're eaten. Such as peas and lentils and, lima beans, navy beans, cholent beans, you name them. Those are all kidneys, right? Then there's Yerone Gina She'ena Ne'acholim. Zronik in Hashem Ne'acholim are those which are not they are not suitable to eat themselves. You can't eat the zera, but you can eat that which comes out of the seed, such as he brings down here onions and garlic and similar type of leeks and garlics and onions and things like that. So in that case, we made the comment that although these things grow as bulbs, remember we said they can't all grow as bulbs, so they don't. There actually are seeds. Okay, so those seeds are zirone gina sheina ne'acholim, meaning they grow in gardens, but they themselves are not eaten. So we have grain, where it's the seed which is eaten. The kernel is the seed. We have also legumes, where the seed is eaten, and then we have other types of seeds where you plant but you do not eat the seed, okay, which includes onions, etc. Okay, so far so good. So says the Gemara, no, that's what I'm about to say. The third line down the Gemara, so let's include other types of seeds which are not eaten. No, it says the grain of your field. And it says okay, it says the grain in your field, and it says that which grows each and every year. Now, from this we learn what do we do with this? Tomi ben asayim davar shu'ochav nishmar. It says we have to derive in these two droshos things which can be eaten and things which are preserved. Preserved meaning that you don't make them hefker. They normally grow. They're normally cultivated. So so the bottom line here is that we use that the tvua sarecha. Just a second. He says. So the problem is, even though we quote these two psukim, they're not exactly what we're learning out from. We're learning out the fact that it's ochel from that which it says v'achalta, and I don't see that it brings down v'achalta here explicitly anywhere in the Gemara. Yeah, it says tvua sarecha v'achalta. Okay, Kavanaki brings down his girsa. You see in the third line it says tvua sarecha. So the word after that should be v'achalta. So that teaches us it's got to be edible itself. Well, that precludes all the seeds which you plant, which are not edible, because it's got to be tvua zarecha v'achalta. It could be tvua, grain. It could be zera. It could be legumes, but it's got to be v'achalta. It's got to be that it itself is edible. That comes to include the edible legumes. Right, I said it's from Zarecha, but it wouldn't have been learned out had I not said the kol, right? Because otherwise, you just said the grain, which comes in the form of seeds, but not the legumes which come in the form of seeds. That's how to say kol. Besides that, no, they might, but not here in the Gemara. So that's from there we learn out that it has to be edible. That it says hayotze asodeh. Right, Ayotze saw the Shana. For that we learn out that it has to be also stuff which grows to the ground as opposed to mushrooms. By the way, do you know how mushrooms don't grow from the ground? I just learned that from the Kavanaki today. What does that mean? That's only one reason. One thing is that the spores are not plant. They're not seeds. They're reproduced by spores, but not by seeds. Another thing is that he says here that by plants they get the carbon, the hydrogen, and the oxygen from the atmosphere. And they get the carbon from the atmosphere, and they get the hydrogen and oxygen from water, and they combine the two of them through the what that's called in English photosynthesis, Because they have chlorophyll, which allows them to do that. Yeah, spelled wrong. But mushrooms don't have any chlorophyll. So therefore they have to get their carbohydrates not from the photosynthesis process, but they have to absorb them whole. And that's why they grow on, rotted trees and such like, to get the carbohydrates from the source which already exists. So it's a very different way of sustaining itself. So that's why mushrooms are essentially different. Okay? And the other thing is what you said, that they reproduce by spores, not by seeds. Spores are really little pieces of mushroom as opposed to seeds thereof. So those are two reasons why they're not called mina oretz. Okay? Finally, the last thing we learn out is because it says zarecha. We do darshan the zarecha. We darshan the zarecha that it should be yours and it shouldn't be hefker. Okay, so we darshan v'chalta, which is after the word zarecha, and not printed in the Gemara here. We darshan ayotze asodeh, and we darshan zarecha. Okay, all those things we darshan to teach us has to be food, has to be something which you safe keep, and has to be something also which grows from the ground. What? Hey, zarecha. Yours. Right, yours is there. Okay? So, Istaboy Mishina Minador. There's something you want to learn from here. Aser ta aser klau. That's a generality. Now, the first Russian was a ribuy and mute. We're married by everything, essentially, except we're married. The one thing we're married is, of course, stuff which is, it's a rone gina. Stuff where you can't eat the actual seed itself. The thing is that now the Gemara comes along and says, the derech in Yerushalmi is dasha ribuy miutz. In the Bavli, we very often dasha klal prats. So now the Gemara is going to try a klal prat, right? East the boy mishmina minado. They want to learn from here. I'm going to try to switch it back to the Kavanaki and see if it works. The thing is that before I do that, let me tell you that I see a line here which I don't know if we're going to find later here. There's a line in Kavanaki, very important line. I don't know if it appears anywhere later on in the text of the Gemara. No, but I wanted to this line specifically. It says, Yochel af Yerakos, our vegetables chayv and meiser. Talmud loymar, hayotzi ksiv hayotzi asada shana shana. Vegetables don't grow every year, it seems. They're not on a yearly cycle. So therefore, vegetables are exempt from my trumas and meiser d'oraisa. So what we've so far exempted, what? Because we have a ribui kol. We have a ribui kol from which we learn seeds, right? So that we need a special miut to take away vegetables. That's what we're learning from Shona Shona. That's something which grows on a yearly basis, an annual basis. No, but then how would we include Zirone Gino? I mean, not Zirone Gino, sorry, scratch that, legumes. Zirone Gino we talk exclude, because they're not Nechal. But we include legumes. So look, after all said and done, grain, legumes are Chayiv D'Oraisa. Seeds, which are not consumed, are exempt to Oraisa, as are vegetables. Okay, that's where we're standing right now, 2 on 2. All vegetables are Chayiv Ma'asros, only the Rabbanon. I guess not. What do we know? Yeah. You grow them in jewel, don't you? You grow them in jewel, don't you? I don't know anything about it. When you plant vegetables, it seems they don't grow every year. I'm not sure. No, but that's not what it is, though. Because grain doesn't come back every year either. Yeah. No, it's something else. It seems like they I don't know. Let's see if he explains in the back. I don't know what the Metzias is. He just says it's not Yotzei Shana Shana.
Whether the man's son will live, being Louis, the money should start to be done. I'm giving stuff to somebody.
He gives two pshatim here. Says one is that they don't last. They're not preserved. Shana means you can save last year's crop till next year. And you can save last year's crop of grain and of beans, but you can't save last year's crop of vegetables for next year. That's one shana. The other is that you can plant the vegetables more than once a year. 2 seasons. But that, I don't know if that works, because nowadays we also have 2 seasons for grain. We have winter and summer grain. Right? So I like the first shot better. The first shot is the Rash Leo. Okay, good shot. Some people want to learn out from here. We are now in the fourth line in the Gemara. Okay? Aser ta'aser, someone to learn like this, a cloud pratu cloud. The Tanya, here's the Tanya. Aser ta'aser is called cloud. Okay? Aser ta'aser, everything that's a cloud. Tfuas arecha, the grain of your seed. Prat. Klaulu prat. You have a generality specification. And the cloud elamashu prat. I can only include the cloud, that which is in the prat. Ainly ela tzivua, so that should only include grain, period. Kidneys minan, I don't know also to include legumes. Tamloma b'chol maseror. So then it says b'chol maseror, it's like a choser kilo, right? Makes a cloud prat to cloud. Zera oretz, do you have that? Zera oretz, and it says zera oretz l'rabos, that comes to include zera shum shkelayim v'gargir. That comes to include the seeds that the seeds of onions. Shchaim is of garlic. Sorry, shum is garlic. Shchelayim is cress, and gargir, which he says is rocket in English. In any event, I don't know there was a plant named for rocket, but all these plants, they're included somehow in the where it says b'chol maser oretz, zera oretz. Yochashli marbe zera lufa elyon. Do I also include the plant of the seeds of aram? That's what luf is. V'zera krishin, and the seeds of leek. V'zera b'tzolim, and the seeds of onion. V'zera lefes, the seeds of turnips. Utznonos, and radishes. V'shar zironegina sheda echolim, and other types of seeds that do not grow, that cannot be eaten. Tamlomar mizera, some of them below kol zera, and not all of them. So we just drew a sharp distinction. We said there's certain types of seeds which can be eaten. Those are chayiv. The same distinction we drew on before, but given with a little bit more of specification here. The seeds which can be eaten, those are chayiv and maasros. The seeds which cannot be eaten are not chayiv and maasros. Okay? It says more pri ha'etz, that it says in the pasuk pri ha'etz, l'chabos pri ha'ilon. It's come to teach us that fruit is chayiv and maasros to raisa. Do I include also fruit which is like charuve shita, the carrots which grow in shita, and salmona, the charuve giroda, and the fruit, the carrots which grow in giroda. Now, most people don't eat these carobs. There's a big yisoid which I would have loved to have learned before Masechta Trumos. A fruit which is edible, but most people don't eat, is not chayiv and Trumos and Maisos D'Oraisa. Only D'Rabbanan. Even if you decide to eat it. Okay? How we know that? Tamlova mi prioids Because Bazuk says, mi creates the low co-payroll silon. Says, no co-creates, it should be. Not from the fruit of the tree, mi creates with a mem, and not all of it. So a very fundamental concept. That may, but they try and objectify it. I mean, we saw some South Resechel's Trumas, that there are cases in which they said that stuff which is only eaten by human beings with difficulty does not chayiv and Trumas and Ma'asros T'oraisa. And it's a pasuk. It's learned out from this Mambir. Most people don't eat it. Okay. Doesn't help. Has to be most. For him, it won't do any. It still won't be chayiv. Yirakas minayin. For Tumatar, things have to be food-like, yes, but there I think it's much more subjective. Their taki is dependent on the individual tastes. Here it seems to be something which has to conform with the majority of human beings. I think. It's much more subjective there, even if a minority of people. Yeah, by Tumantaro. Here it goes by majority, so I think it even goes by minorities. That's right. Okay, we're on Alpha and Base now. Yirakas minayin. How do we know the vegetables are takechayim bisman hazeh? So it says the Gemara, Isi ben Akavi oimer, Ma'asros liyirakas midivreim. You're right. Ma'aseh for vegetables is takat the Rabbanon. Okay, so let's sum up. Principle which you would have loved to have known 2 months ago, right? Doraisa, what's chayiv and Trumas and Ma'asros? Grains. A, grains. B, seeds which can legumes. C, seeds which can be eaten. Okay, which is really in the I guess similar to legumes, but onion seed, for instance, it says here can be eaten. I'm not onion seed. Garlic seed, it says can be eaten. Okay, so those 3 things are chayiv d'oraisa, plus a 4th category, which is separate, I guess, is perosa or eights, fruit of a tree. What's exempt d'oraisa? 2 things. Zerone hina she'ena ne'acholim. Right, where you have a seed which cannot be eaten, such as onion seed, distinct from garlic seed, and besides that, also all vegetables, right? Because they're not preserved. Okay, so those are the 6 categories, and 4 of them are chayiv, and 2 are exempt. Okay, v'nishma. Do you have that header? Okay, Isi ben Akavia. I'm sorry, Omer Rav Chisda said. Hivkir. Now the nishmar means, I should say where the principles of chiv trumas and ma'asros, that must be nishmar. It must be something which is not hefkir. So now we're going to have a very lumdisha Gemara on this basis. A very, very interesting Gemara. Amar Rav Chisda said, Hivkir kama. Again, fundamental. You were mavkir, right? You relinquished ownership of your standing grain. Because of his zachaba, and then you took hold of it again, as it's still while still standing. The other, then you committed an avera. The hifish mimena truma, you separated truma from it after it was harvested, but while it was still stalks out in the field. At that point, you're not supposed to take off truma yet, because when are you supposed to take off truma? After you make a heap it in a pile called Miruach. After heaping the pile, not beforehand. Okay? So you took off the Trumas and Ma'asros here when it's still in stalks in the field. No. Trust me on this. We'll come to sit back. We'll talk about it in detail. Yeah, this is the pile, sure. Harezu Truma. It's considered to be valid truma. Why? Because at the time that you harvested it, you had reacquired it already. Hivkir shibolim. What, however, if you were mafkir it after the harvest, when it was already stalks, the chazar v'zachabayan, and then you could call them again. And then you took off the truma from them. Not truma. It's not valid truma. When it can only become valid truma in that case? Only after miruach. That's fascinating. The more is going to explain it. Again, two different cases. One case you were mafkin when it was still standing out as growing in the field. Then you harvested it. Then you took up truma while it's still out in the field as individual stalks. It works b'diavad. It's okay. It is valid truma. However, if you made it after you harvested it, after the harvest, and then while it was still stalks, before miruach, before smoothing the pile, you took off trumas and ma'asros as is, that doesn't work. When can you take off trumas and ma'asros then and have it work? Only after miruach, only after you smooth the pile. As well, what's the difference? Ma ben kama l'shibolim. Everybody have the place?
After miruach, it's like you're making a
Don't give away the Gemara secrets. Ma ben kama l'shibolim, Mr. Zuger, fourth line down. Ma ben kama l'shibolim, what's the difference between standing grain and stalks? Says the Gemara, Kama Chuloiv Kira, the standing grain, before you were mafkir it, right, of our Shemenu Truma, if you took Truma off it at that point, while it's still growing in the field, ain't no Truma. It's not valid Truma. And therefore the fact that you were mafkir it and reacquired at this point has no impact. It's not yet holding at a stage where you can take truma off of it. So therefore, hefker reacquisition at the time that it's standing in the grain and standing and growing doesn't have any halachic impact on the grain whatsoever. And that's why if subsequently you took it off, took off the grain after you reacquired it and harvested it while still out in the field, it works like it works all over b'diavad. However, Shibolin, stalks, or sheaves is actually a more proper translation. Acheloiv kiron, before you were mafkir them, you were over v'ivishvem truma, you transgressed and took off truma, haresu truma. It's already susceptible to truma, and therefore the hefker impacts upon it. Now, the way the Bavli would express this is that there's a shaila all over Shas. When can something be nitche from being usable for a mitzvah? Only when it's nireh, or even before it's nireh. Nireh means when it's suitable to be used as a mitzvah. So there's a shaila if nireh v'nivche chazer v'nireh. So it was suitable to use a mitzvah, then you pushed it off temporarily, can you bring it back into suitability? That would be the shaila, that would be the shaila of when it's already stalks or sheaves, then you were mafkir it, then you reacquired it. So it was nireh, it could become truma, then it was cast aside, then you want to bring it back. Okay, so in that way, that's the case where there's a shaila, and the Gemara says, since we don't know, nitche v'chazar v'nira. We don't know whether it's a valid procedure or not. So therefore, we have to wait to ensure that we have an additional stage, which definitely is mechayiv in a truma. What's that additional stage? Miruach. Before miruach, it's not going to work. But if you were mafkir it before you harvested it, so that's like what the Bavli calls nitche v'nira. There's no such thing. It can't be cast aside from being valid for a mitzvah until the mitzvah actually applies to it. And that's why, once you harvest it afterwards, it returns to the status of being suitable to take trumas and ma'asros. Now, in this respect, it's worthwhile for us to talk about the three different steps in making something truma. The three different suitable for takeoff truma. The three different steps are the onas ma'asros, when it grows a third, and then there's the harvesting, and then there's miruach. And somewhere over here he speaks about them, I just don't remember where. The onas ma'asros is when after that point, if you harvested it, you could take off meiser on it. That's after the third grow, like machal ben jusai by Shabbos. Then it's still once it's the third grown, even if you harvest it, you're still not chayav and trumas of meiseres if you're eating a rye, if you're snacking. The only time you're chayav and trumas of meiseres, even if you're snacking, is after miruach. Okay. Even then, you're not really chayav until it enters your house. You really need miruach and it entering your house. But if you take it into your house as stalks, so then you can still snack on it. Okay? Bringing it to the roof, that's right. So therefore you need to have, so there are 3 stages, really 4. Onas maisrus, right, when it becomes a third grown. Then when you harvest it, even though it's still just stalks or sheaves. Then when you do miruach, and then we bring it into your house. So each point of this has its own sensitivity. But that's what Gemara is saying here, that if you took, if you were mafkin when it stalks, and then you reacquired it while it still stalks, that entire stage has been disrupted. You cannot assume it's chayiv and trumas u'maitzes based on that stage, because it's nidche at that stage. When can it become re-chayiv and trumas u'maitzes now? Only in the next stage, after the miruach is done b'yad Yisrael, and that actually works.
Nira always has to be first. You can't.
Right.
Nira has to be.
In order to be nidche, it has to be nira first. Okay? It's a beautiful Gemara. Rav Chinan b'shem Rav Chisda said. Rav Chinan name Rav Chisda said, Af behektish came. This is also true about hektish. In other words, if you took the same thing, principles apply if you were mafkir, but you were makdish it and then redeemed it. Now the Gemara is going to argue on this. Yeah, but the Gemara is going to argue on this. Yes, we had in the Bible it says this, where that hektish is the same as hefker, but not now the Gemara is going to argue on this. Milan the Rabban Pligin. It's going to bring down the rabbis, the Israelis. Chisda was a Babylonian. The Israelis argued. Milan the Rabban Pligin. Dam Rabbi Yerushalmi B'Shem Rabbi Yanai. Yochanan Rabbi Yanai. Uba Levi. The Levi will come. Keilon Chelak V'Nachlo Imach. He will come and take your trumas u'maitzes because he has no portion with you. V'Mashi Yeshloch Vein Lo. Ato Chayiv Litein Lo. For that which he has, which you have and he doesn't have, you have to give him meiser. What stuff which you have and he doesn't have? The grain which grew in your field. What does this exempt you from? Yotza leket. This doesn't apply to leket, right? Stuff which is matno sanim. Sheyod chaviyod shavim bo. In that case, anybody could take Yisrael or Levi. It's a big democracy, right? And he leket, he shikha, he peah, he hefker. They're all the same in all these commodities, in all these states. The grain is equally accessible to both the Levi and to the Yisrael. Vam Rabbi Yochanan said, Chabura haisa maksha. Based on this, the Chabura used to ask, do you have these words? Chabura haisa maksha, hare hektish ein yodcha v'yodo shovin. Wait a minute. By hektish, it's not your hand and his hand are not on equal status. Right? Why they're not equal status, we'll have to explain. We haven't done that yet. But the Rabbi Yochanan,
or the despair.
yeah, but we're still on equal status. That means, if anything, the Kohen has it over the Yisrael, right? Okay, so we're going to have to discuss that. We're going to come back to this, why you're not in equal status. But this is more of a point, this is going to be a point of contention. I'm just letting you know. So be that as it may, so they're saying, their question is that Hekdesh is not like Hefker. By Hefker, everybody has equal access to it. By Hekdesh, somebody still has more privileged access than somebody else. So therefore, in that case, stuff which you made hektish should not be exempt from trumas u'maitzes as a result. Says more no. Rav Chisda and Rav Chisda both hold kimisha yodcha v'yodo shavin. By hektish, it's out of everybody's hands. And then we're going to explain all this, the different positions. But by Gemara, hektish is out of everybody's hands, and therefore hektish exempts from trumas u'maitzes just like hefker does. I have a lot of little letters here, which means there probably are differences here. Vam Rabbi Hila. Rabbi Hila said, Bambana Kayamid. What are we talking about? Are you still with me? If miruach was done in the hands of Hefker and the hands of Hektish, Mr. Zuger, miruach is when you smooth over the pile. If the smoothing of the pile was done in the hands of Hefker, the hands of Hektish, that's it. You could never become Chayiv and Trumas and Maasros. At that point, it's potter forever. Why is that? Because the Torah says, Reishis the Goncha, the first of your Dagon. Now, Dagon is not Tvua. What's the difference between Tvua and Dagon? I don't know if there's any difference in English. But Tvua is grain before it's processed. And Dagon is processed grain. And Digun would be the Tanakh word for Miruach. Okay? So therefore, says the Gemara, if the Miruach was done in the hands of somebody other than a Jewish person, it was done by Hekdesh, it was done by Goy, it was done by, when it was Hefker. So then Taka. There can never be any Chiv of Trumas and Maasros. We all agree on that. Okay? Says the Gemara, even says again, even says Recha Kri B'Rishus Hefker or B'Rishus Hekdesh or Matar Rishus Goncha V'Lo Shel Hefker. Rishus Goncha, the beginning of V'Lo Shel Hekdesh. Elakenu Kami. We must be talking about the following case. Sheivkir Shibolim, you were mavkir the stalks or the sheaves, the chazer b'uzacha b'hem, and then you reacquired them. So, according to Rabbi Yochanan's opinion, the hefker potter. If we're talking about hefker, you will remain exempt. The hekdesh chayiv. If we're talking about hekdesh, then you're chayiv still in Trumas and Maasros when you reacquire them. The hefker potter. Why by hefker you exempt? Minahi dam Rabbi Yochanan b'shem Rabbi Yanai, because that which Rabbi Yochanan said, hey Rabbi Yanai, right? This is Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. Ubar Levi, the Levi should come. Ki ein lo chelik menachlo imach. Because he has no portion with you. That's why by Hefker, where you both have a portion, so you're not chayav with Trumas and Maasros. However, by Hekdesh chayav. By Hekdesh, you are chayav. For that which you learned over there, Hekdish kama, Podach kama chayeves. If you makdish the stalks when they're standing, and everything they're understanding, you're chayav. And the same thing, according to Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yanai, is even true if you were makdish the sheaves and then redeem the sheaves. Says more, why? Ma ben hefker, ma ben hektish. What's the between hefker and hektish? Asks more, hefker yotzei yidei hakol. Hefker left everybody's hand, and therefore everybody has universal access to it. Hektish lo yotzei yidei gizbor. Hekdesh. Who owns it now? Beis HaMikdash. That's like you said before, right? The Kohen owns it. So therefore, it's an interesting thing because he really doesn't own it, right? He really doesn't own it. He's just in charge of it, right? He has control. He's the treasurer of the Gizbar. But it sits as if it's under his control, so therefore it's not like Hefker. Because Hefker, everybody's equal access. Here it's controlled access. It's not controlled by the owner, but it's controlled by somebody, right? So therefore, since that's the case, a Kohen is not, this is not exempt, this stuff which is made Hekdesh is not exempt from Trumas and Maasros. That's one answer. Rabbi Avin said, Afilu, I wonder if you have, Afilu de Bailim, same thing. Rabbi Afilu de Bailim nami lo yotza. The truth is that it really belongs to the owner still. It really belongs to the owner. Why? Even if you made it hektish. Because they always say to the owner, when it comes to redeeming hektish, you redeem first. You have first dibs on redeeming, and we want you to redeem first. So therefore, it really still belongs to the guy himself in a certain sense. And that's why, since that's the case, since we tell him always, you try and redeem it first, that it never really left completely his domain, and that's why it's the chayiv and Trumas and Maasros, unlike Hefker. Okay? Thing is, Rav Chisda argues on both these things. We pass him like Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda said, Hekdesh doesn't belong to the, he doesn't say it inside, but Rechista's position is Hekdesh does not belong to the Gizbar, he's just like a treasurer, and Hekdesh also, even though we try and get the guy to redeem it first, it doesn't belong to him, it no longer belongs to him either. So therefore it no longer belongs to anybody in essence, except to God, and therefore it's equally accessible or inaccessible to the Yisrael and the Levi, and therefore at that point, we say it becomes exempt from Trumas and Ma'asros. Okay, so Rav Chisda argues on both these aspects. Okay, Rabbi Zira, Rabbi Yasif, Shem, Rabbi Lezer said. Now I'm going to come to a few other shittas. Rabbi Zira, Rabbi Yasif, Shem, Rabbi Lezer both said, Hazoreah Sadeh Hefker. Now it's your seed, but the land is it's hefker land, right? It's like not claimed by anybody. Hazareh saw the hefker chayv b'maasros. You're chayv b'maasros. Why? Because at least the land is yours. We know Paskin like him. But he says the land is yours. You're chayv b'maasros. Okay. Rabbi Yonah mapich lishna. Rabbi Yonah changed language, meaning he changed the shita. He said, that's only bezoch besad hefker. That's only if you acquire the field when you planted it. But if the field remained hefker, then forget it. There's no way you can be chayev in Trumas and Ma'asros. Okay? Rabbi Chia Barada, do you have two dots here? One dot. Chia Barada, boy, come Rabbi Yochanan. Chia Barada asked for Yochanan. Kamein upitrios, mushrooms and truffles. Ma'ashu chayev Ma'asros, so the chayev Ma'asros. Rabbi Yochanan said, Kamein upitrios, Ma'ashu chayev Ma'asros. If you have mushrooms and truffles, so the chayev Ma'asros. Amar lei Rabbi Yochanan Shem Rabbi Simoi. Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Simoi. No. Ksiv it says Aser Ta'aser Es Kol Tvu Azarecha. It has you give ma'aser from your Tvu Azarecha. Darvashu Nizra V'Nitzma Matzmiya has to be that there's a seed which you plant and it grows. Yotzu Kmeinu Pitrio She'enam Nizros Matzmichos. Kmeinu Pitrios, you don't plant them, right? They don't have seeds. They have spores. They don't have seeds, so they're not planted in the same way. Rabbi Yonah Mafik Lishna. Rabbi Yonah gave a different interpretation. He said, because they're spewed forth from the land. Which seems to be like the other aspect. In other words, that they're not performing photosynthesis, but rather everything is going forth in what the nutrients they absorb from the ground. Again, by a plant, so the photosynthesis allows them to take things in from the sun and the light and all that and use that. The mushrooms don't use that at all, so therefore they're exempt, they're not the same. Okay, Avo Bishu Shomer Losif. Do you have that header? Even though you preserve it in order for it to grow further. Now, this is a very interesting condition, which ultimately the Gemara is going to reject. There's a case where the Gemara is going to end up arguing on the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that it has to be something which will grow, and when it continues to grow, it'll still be edible. Suppose it's something which when it continues to grow, will become tough and hard and inedible. That would be exempt from Trumas and Ma'asros D'Oraisa. If you don't preserve it to grow, meaning if it grows larger, it's not going to be edible. Eino chayiv katav v'gadol. It's not chayiv with Trumas and Ma'asros D'Oraisa. That's what sounds for our Mishnah. Rabbi Yami v'shem Rabbi Shem ben Laki say Zulahaitzi b'divrei Gamliel. Our Mishnah comes to preclude or exclude the words of Gamliel, who in fact are going to fasken like. The Tzina we learned Taman over there. Where's over there? So Mishnah later on the Masechta. Rabbi Gamliel Omer. Gamliel says tomorrow shel tilson. If you have the bud of our old fenugreek plant, which eventually gets hard, it becomes inedible. Eventually it hardens, it becomes inedible. But right now it's still edible. And similarly shel chardo. You have the buds of a mustard tree. V'shapua loven and of a white legume. Chayavas v'maasros. They're chayiv and maasros. How could even though later on they're going to become hard and inedible, since now they're edible, they're chayiv and maasros right now. Rabbi Yosi says, I don't understand. Just because somebody eats them now, Gamliel says the chayiv and Ma'asros. Why would he say such a thing? If that's the case, even if they're even if you're collecting the vegetables, even if you're collecting vegetables from the fenugreek tree, yeah, it's a little bit difficult, but this is what he means to say. Even if you're collecting vegetables, the fenugreek tree has buds and it has vegetables. Don't ask me what it looks like, but it's got the buds, which are called the tmoros, and it's got literally the dates, but they're little buds, and it's got the vegetables, which are an additional component of the tree. So it says more, if we're going by what a person needs, so also the vegetables should be chayiv in the fenugreek tree, right? Because people eat them. So if you're going to be mechayiv the tmoros and trumas and ma'asros, be mechayiv also the yarkon, the vegetable part thereof. So it says more, El Ragamliel Savar Chashuvos Hein Ochel. Ragamliel holds, no. All the buds are considered to be food in and of themselves. Rabbanan Amin Ein Chashuvos Lo Ochel. Rabbanan say they're not considered to be food. Now, this is a funny thing. I'm not sure how to explain it because I don't know what a fenugreek tree looks like. So I don't know how you determine this is the edible part, this is the non-edible part. But what I do know is this. Ram Gamliel is arguing in our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said that if it gets hard and inedible later in the process, then it's exempt from Trumas and Ma'asros. Ram Gamliel argues. Ram Gamliel says that any time you intend to eat it, even if later on that component of the tree will harden, since right now you are an ochel, meaning that this is edible for you, it's chayiv and trumas and ma'asros. So he rejects the position of our Mishnah. Okay, it's a machlokas. And furthermore, minador the time that which we learned, Rabbi Shua ben Kapsoi. Do you have ben Kapsoi? Okay, no. Miyomai is the next word. So he just skips that. I don't know why. Rabbi Shua ben Kapsoi. Miyomai, from my entire life, lo ma'ani libi, I never had the courage, lo marlon, to say to anybody, say lukot minat mochel shel tilsad, go and collect the buds of the fenugreek, shel chayda, a mustard, shel pull out lavan, and the white legumes, ushlok, and boil them, lefotra min ha-ma'asros, and exempt them from ma'asor. In other words, he felt he did not have the courage to make against Ram Gamliel and say that since they're going to become tough and like wood later on, they're exempt. Rather, he held that one has to be mechayiv, then be safek. Okay? Tanya, we learned kol shetchilaso ochel, anything which begins as food, ve'ein sofo ochel, and doesn't end up being food, chayiv b'tchilaso. It's chayiv at the beginning, which is like Ram Gamliel, not like our Mishnah, right? Even though it's going to end up not food, since it starts off food, it's food. Ma'islecha, what does this come to infer, to include? Ki ador d'tanya, like that which it says later on, like that which it says in the Brisa, hamakayim alei shukruv, l'zera, botlo daito. This is a guy, has a whole field, cabbage field. Whole cabbage field. And he's keeping it growing, the cabbage field. It's used later on as seed. So therefore all the leaves by him become insignificant. So they should all be exempt from Trumas and Ma'asros, right? Because by definition he's not growing it for food purposes, he's growing it for seed purposes. So we say, nice try, no cigar. His butler daitcha, he's insane. He can't be mavato cabbage. Can't do that. Cabbage is meant to be eaten, and he can't be mavato l'chiyav of cabbage but Trumas and Ma'asros. Huh? Except, however, says the Gemara, if he designates only a few stalks of cabbage or a few cabbage plants in his field for zera, on those it does work. Those now become zera plants and not food plants. Okay, so you can do it to a few and not to all of them, because obviously you do need some of them for seed for the next year's crop. So as long as you only choose a few, not all, that's okay. Okay. Rabbi Yoina said, "V'hu shaliket yerek." That's only, however, when he collected them when they're still vegetables. In other words, if he collected the cabbage while they were still edible, and he had claimed that he's growing them for seed, we say, ha ha ha. Well, yeah, sure you're growing them for seed. But if, however, avaloli yerek, if he didn't collect them when they're still vegetables, but when they already became hard like wood, so what are we going to say? That wood is chayiv and meiser? Obviously, it's only when it's still edible. Okay? So as long as it's still edible, it's chayiv, but not after it becomes inedible. Do you have that? Have that header? Okay, ma'islucha. What is something which begins as food and doesn't end up food? Well, actually, it's the other way around. We'll go ahead and the v'chulei. What ends up being food but not food to begin with? That's the next Mishnah. Like the next Mishnah, from when is food chayv and meiser? Figs when they reach a certain stage, and so on and so forth. So it works both ways. There are things which end up not being food, and there are things which start out not being food. So therefore, it has to be at the proper stage of development in order to be chayv. Okay, the bottom line is we paskin that something which starts out being food, even if it gets hard later on, is still chayiv at the time that it's as long as it's yet food. Vice versa, if something is not yet food because it's too unripe and premature, at that point it's not yet chayiv in trumas or meiser. Okay, now we're up to halacha base. Now here I want to give you this, make sure I got this right, because here's where he has his introduction. Again, onas ma'asros is when they're a third grown, and then you're not allowed to, from the time something's a third grown. You can't eat from it a snack. You can't eat from it permanently. You can still snack on them until you take off ma'asros. Then there is gemar malacha, which is when you have when you smooth the pile. So then that together with re'iyas pnei bayis is mechayiv you, right? In mechayiv you, even you're still not allowed to snack, right? So you're allowed to snack, but not until it enters the house. And he says that there are cases where you have 6 things which are like coming into the house, which are kovem b'drabanan. Okay, first of all, if you intend, you bring it into your yard as opposed to your house, you designate it to be merchandise, you put fire underneath it in some way, shape, or form, you salt it, and you start taking truma off of it, or it's Shabbos. It's right, Shabbos kover for trumas and ma'asros. So all these things are kover d'rabanan. The rice, it's only after miruach when it enters your house. There are 6 things which are kover d'rabanan. Okay? Again, chotzer, yard, mekach, designated for merchandise, eish, cooking, melach, salting, truma, you started taking off truma, then you continue to take off ma'asros, and Shabbos is kover for ma'asros. Now, all this thing is talking about all this talking about grain and all these types of the harvest. But if you have stuff such as olives and grapes, so then the moment you put it in the press, it has to be trumas u'mayis. You're not allowed to snack on it anymore. Okay, once it goes into a press to be made olive oil or grape juice, that's it. Time's up. Right, that's gemar malacha. Even though you're still processing it, but that's gemar malacha. Okay, Mishnah base. From what time are the perus chayiv and ma'asros? Hata'enim, figs, mishiav chilu. The Gemara will explain what that is. Hanovim va'bu'ushim, grapes and unripe grapes, mishiavish. The Gemara will explain what that is. Va'og sumak and tutim, all sorts of berries, mishadumi, from the time they become red. All red fruit from the time it becomes red. Harimonim, figs, mishimasu, the Gemara will explain what that, pomegranates, when they become mishimasu, the Gemara will explain what that is. Hatmorim, dates, mishatil, so once they get little cracks in them. Haparskim, peaches, mishatilu, gidim, once they have little red threads going through them, through the green, I guess. Vagozim, nuts, mishiasim gur, once they have little rooms in them. Right? Nuts have rooms, chambers. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Gozim vashkedim, the nuts and almonds, mishias klipa, once they have an inner husk to them. Hacharuvin, carobs, mishinaktu, once they get black dots. They grow green, then they become gradually darker. Once they get black dots, they're chayav and trumas and maasros. V'chol all black fruits. Mishinaktu, once it gets black dots. Vagosim, pears. Vakustamulin, another kind of pear. Vaprishin, quince. Vauzdar, azrin, crab apples. Mishi karchu. That's when they get bald. And what it's going to discuss what that is. V'chol avanim, all white type fruits. Mishi karchu, once they get bald, obviously little white spots. Hatil son, fenugreek. Mishatah titzmach. Once it's suitable to produce seed, which can grow. Vatfua vazesim, grain and olives, mishiach nisu shlish, when they are third grown. Okay? Says more, mishiach chilu, what does that mean? That's going back on figs. What does it mean? Rabbi Chia Barva Omar Choisa, when it's mature enough to get you sick if you eat it. So madrega, it's mature enough to get you sick. Kamar the tamer, like it says, the God with nafsham bochlabi, their soul is also repulsed at me. Rabbi Abba b'shem Bar Yaakov b'shem Rabbi Yechanan Amar mishadimu pm, once their mouth, the place where they're connected to the stem, to the twig, gets mishadimu pm, once their mouth gets reddish. Ask why that doesn't happen. V'chol tein in pm adimos, by all figs, does this twig where it get connected to the twig get red? So Yitanach Bar Marion says, you know what? They don't. Shem Rabbi Yochanan, he said a different test. You take one of the figs off the tree and you leave it. If that fig becomes ripe within 24 hours, so it indicates that chayovas, they all are now ripe enough to be chayav and trumas and maasros. If not, imla peturos, if none of them gets ripe in 24 hours, then it's not going to be sufficiently ripe yet. Hanovim abushim v'chulei. Rabbi Zira Shem Reyasa says, Mishi koru b'usha. Once they're called lousy grapes. No, again, it's a madrega to be called lousy. So it has to be called, once it's called lousy, that's when it's ripe enough. Rabbi Ivu bar Nagre and Rabbi Tancho bar Loeb Sherry Dilchel Nachel bar Smoy said, Vusha techatzon shlem near its mechutz. It has to be sufficiently large enough seed inside that it can that it can see the pit outside the grape. Rabbi Yochanan said, Rachi vavina kasvei desabe. I was riding on the shoulder of the old men, the Shamitz Kali, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, and I heard the voice of Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. For Yosef Masne, he was sitting and learning. The chanchin b'mei b'mlafon. You can sweep up melon seeds on Shabbos. Ve'ein mechanchin b'mei avatich. You're not allowed to sweep up watermelon seeds. What's the difference? So you're not allowed to sweep on Shabbos because you might come to make your floor smooth. But you're allowed to sweep up stuff. Well, ma b'mei melafon b'mei avatich. What's the difference? Harishim bar Marsna mei melafon l'achilu. You can eat melon seeds. So therefore it doesn't look like you're doing it in order to fix up your house. Or, what's worse, to gather it up in order to plant them. You're doing it to eat them. May avatiach, but watermelon seeds, which is funny because I don't understand this because we eat watermelon seeds, but may avatiach lizriya, he says watermelon seeds were used to plant. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe avatiach means melon, the other one is watermelon. I don't know. So therefore, if you say people can gather that on Shabbos, so then it looks like he's actually clearing his field on Shabbos, which is not permitted. Preparing on Shabbos or Motzei Shabbos, and obviously not collecting for the purpose of eating today, but rather for planting Motzei Shabbos or after Shabbos, and that's also because it looks like a forbidden melacha. Okay, we'll stop here for today.